got your own style, that's just slang for you, ain't got it though. Talking like you got it, that's a problem, I might let them know. Freeze you like a mouse or something, let it go. Eeny, eeny, meeny, meeny, miny, mo. Eeny, eeny, meeny, meeny, miny, mo. Your own style, that's just slang for you, ain't got it though. Talking like you got it, that's a problem, I might let them know. Freeze you like a mouse or something, let it go. Eeny, eeny, meeny, meeny, miny, mo. Head to toe, said you got your own style, that's just slang for you, ain't got it though. Talking like you got it, that's a problem, I might let them know. Freeze you like a mouse or something, let it go. Eeny, eeny, meeny, meeny, miny, mo.
This is the Jazza Micro #2 pencil, and through the rest of this video I'm going to create an entire line of art supplies, micro art supplies. The amount of time and effort it took to just make this little guy, and yet, oh my god, is it satisfying. It can be so tricky to focus on the teeny weeny details as you're working on something, and then also have the patience to make it, because it takes time. But I want you to come on this journey with me and benefit from it the same way I do, by practicing your ability to focus on the minutiae. So I'm gonna make sure you pay attention by hiding an Amazon gift card that looks something like this somewhere in the video. These are the spots where it's been hidden in other videos, and as you can see, we've been pretty bloody sneaky with where we put them, and you guys are really good at finding them, so I'm gonna get even sneakier. Now, what else am I going to make? I've got a pencil, so I will need an eraser. I mean, that's gonna be one of the easiest ones to do, let's face it. So I'll do a micro eraser, and I'm also gonna do a pen. Now, the way I think I'm gonna have to do this is by using one of these pens. These are my .05 fine liners. They're the smallest fine liners I own. So there's that, and then a teeny weeny brush. I think that's probably it. It's so weird how making tiny stuff takes so much friggin' time. It's insane. And you know what else is insane? The amount of people who use the internet without privacy or safety. I want to thank NordVPN for sponsoring this video and making this project, which will span multiple days, possible. And it's nobody's business what you do or where you go online, which is why NordVPN is a great way for you to protect your privacy. And aside from privacy, one of the major benefits of using a VPN is access. With NordVPN, you can unlock Netflix and your favorite entertainment websites. There's no data logging with your use of NordVPN, and they have super fast servers with over 5,500 servers in 60 countries. Protects your data while you're traveling or in public. They have a cybersecurity suite which acts as an ad blocker. And your account can enable up to 6 simultaneous connections. They have 24/7 customer support, double data encryption, and it even works in China. And on top of all that, they're so confident you're gonna like their product that they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. So what are you waiting for? Go unlock a world of content and lock down your security and privacy by going to nordvpn.com/Jazza, where you can get 70% off of a 3-year plan, and if you use the coupon code Jazza, they'll even throw an extra month in for free. So go check it out with the link in the description. Thank you NordVPN for sponsoring this video, guys. Go checking them out. They're kind of a big deal. But you know what's not a big deal? Little things, because they're little. I'm making little stuff. That's this video. That's what I'm doing. I feel like I've established that by now. Okay, let's do it. So, using my already done and adorable tiny pencil as a bit of a size guide, I thought the next logical art supply to make would be the pen. So I started off by dissecting my smallest fine liner. I actually had a Copic 0.03 fine liner, which I dissected so I could extract the nib, but also so I could see how the inside was constructed, so I could figure out how to recreate it in miniature form. Now the ink inside the pen was stored inside one of those cotton candy-like fabric tube things, just like the ones inside the Copic markers. I know that because at that time I destroyed a whole bunch of alcohol markers just to see what was inside. Might use a knife instead. Anyway, I was curious as to whether the other Unipin fine liner had the same insides or if it was just a Copic thing. So I pulled apart the .05 Unipin fine liner and, well, yeah, it was the same. So knowing that's, I guess, how fine liners are made functional naturally, I decided to make my teeny weeny one different. I thought it might make things simpler by cutting the inkwell from a black biro pen, just inserting the stem of the other side of the fine liner into this ink tube, in theory drawing that biro ink in the same way that it would have from the felt tube that it's normally tucked into. I glued around the connection points to seal the gaps, I drilled a kid's plastic paintbrush to fit the tube inside, and I sealed the gaps and joins with epoxy putty, and then tested the rough construction of my teeny weeny fine liner. And it didn't work. Like, immediately didn't work. It turns out that these nibs are meant to work with the same kind of materials that they worked with when I pulled them apart. So I don't know, I guess biro ink is too thick or something. But it was also a big old waste of time. So frustrated, I put the pen aside and now moved on to a different teeny weeny art material, the sketchbook. For the cover of the sketchbook, I cut the back cover off of a plastic folder in the direction of the surface texture and inserted that where I thought the width of the covers would roughly sit. And I clamped, cut, and sanded to get the edges of the sketchbook as clean as possible. With the size of my teeny weeny art book now cleanly cut, I took a spring out from an old office pen for use in the book's spiral, stretching it to the size that I thought would work best so I could thread it cleanly into place after I carefully drilled the holes on the side of the book. Even the cleaning process was super satisfying because the beautifully neat teeny weeny sketchbook emerged from out of the dust. This lifted my spirits a little bit after making another successfully adorable art supply. I thought I'd go back and try the fine liner again, having learnt a few lessons from my previous attempt, the first of which is cutting ink materials and trying to work at a teeny weeny scale is very messy. So I gloved up and deconstructed my previous pen attempt. Next, and most critically, I needed to find a way to turn the contents of the fluffy ink tube into a much smaller but functional ink tube. I started by trying to extract a portion of the fluff and roll it into a tube constructed of sticky tape, but not only was the rolling squeezing the ink and wetting the tape making it unable to stick, but even when I could get it into some type of tube shape, it wasn't small enough. So instead, I just shoved the inky fluff into the tiny pen shell and shoved the Unipin fine liner tip into that. With the core of my pen now constructed, I needed to see if the pen would, actually work. And huzzah! It did! At least for now. Because aside from making some kind of workable tiny ink flow for the pen, I also needed to try and protect both the inky fluff and the felt tip from the air outside so it wouldn't dry out. I needed to make a teeny tiny pen lid. Finally, I filled the cracks and gaps around the rest of the pen shell as best as I could with the green stuff, hoping that this could keep my teeny tiny pen from drying out so it could function later when I would actually try and draw with it. Only time will tell, but for now, I set it aside for the glue and putty to cure, and I'll come back later and clean it up and paint it. Next, brushes. I just cut the tips off of two of my smallest miniature painting brushes, and using the ends of those brush handles, I sanded down the size and shape of the wood handle until I had tiny handles for both of them to connect to. have it. These were much simpler to construct and they're super adorable. So I'd come back and shape, clean and paint those up later, but for now I set them aside to dry and cure. Next, I started building my paint tray, which would eventually hold watercolors by gripping and cutting 2 layers of broken plastic, which coincidentally was salvaged from the tub that died under the weight of the time I purchased every marker in existence. Carefully smoothed the edges and cleaned them up all nice, and the plan was to drill holes on the top sheet of plastic and pair them back together, which would have worked great if I actually thought out where I would drill the holes. But I didn't, so they ended up super uneven and asymmetrical, so I started all over again. This time when it came to drilling the holes, I was much more thoughtful, and with them in place, then I expanded them to fit later as much of the pigment as possible. With that all glued together, I thought I'd make use of the undrilled piece of plastic from my previous attempt by turning it into a little mixing palette that I could use when I work with the watercolors later. I set a drilling depth limit so that the tool wouldn't make any holes, and then I grinded in little dimples into the surface of the plastic which would later hold the paint. Then I primed both of my little trays and airbrushed them with a glossy white coat to make them look like white plastic. Next, it was time to clean up and paint the brushes and the teeny tiny pen. I came back to my little plastic trays to find that one side on both pieces had slightly torn because the paint adhered to the paper towel that I rested them on. So I scraped one side of each of them clean and primed and sprayed them again. Alright, leaving them aside to dry again. I thought the fine liner could use a little bit of writing on it too, just like the pencil. Now came one of the most fiddly parts of the whole project. I dissected a big tray of watercolor paints to turn into my tiny tray of watercolor paints. Now I had limited colors to work with because of the limited holes on my palette, so I picked the best mix of primaries and secondaries and then a black and white that I could, and then I set to work carefully cutting, shaping and sanding them, fixing them into place, and slowly, tediously, fumbly, fidgety, and eventually put my palette together. Last but not least, I didn't have a tiny eraser yet. So I chopped up a big eraser, surprise surprise, and shaped it on a piece of paper, and then I cut and painted a tiny strip of that paper to turn into the coloured wrapping that comes around a nice clean new eraser. My God, this is satisfying. And after all that effort, I finally have an entire array of teeny art supplies. Whether they're functional or not, I don't know yet, but I'm gonna save that for another video and let the payoff and satisfaction of this video be the successfully made beautiful little art supplies. Because look how little they are. So first and foremost, the one you've already seen at the very start of this video, the Jazza Micro No. 2 pencil. This is now paired with a functional eraser with its little sleeve, and these two, hand in hand, should be able to draw effectively in my little sketchbook. I love so much about this, like, for some weird, dumb reason. Like, first of all, the glossy lined front cover and the matte black back cover just feels... Note to self, little things are harder to hold. So it opens up, functions beautifully, hopefully, and should be future-proofed for use with the watercolor art materials. Let me show you those. Starting off with my watercolor palette. We've got a mix of primaries, secondaries, and black and white. And we've got a little mixing palette tray thing here on the side. So these, in combination with Martini brushes, just look at this stuff. Why does this make me so happy? I don't know, but it does. And I'm okay with that. All right, and last, but certainly not least, because it was the most difficult to make, the micro liner. This is the only one I have some doubts about, but I tested it before I painted it and prettied it up, so I'm hoping that it's going to maintain its functionality, but that you're going to have to wait and find out till the next video when I use these art supplies to fill my teeny weeny sketchbook. I'll be as ambitious as I can, but leave your suggestions in the comments down below what you'd like to see me draw in miniature form. And of course, make sure you're subscribed and have your notification bell ticked for a couple of reasons. First of all, not only am I gonna be making awesome art with these teeny weeny things, but I'm gonna be making awesome art in lots of other different ways, because that's what we do on this channel. And second of all, because in the video where I make teeny weeny art, I'm also gonna be giving away a teeny weeny camera. And all you have to do to be in the running to win this GoPro Hero 7 is be subscribed and get in early for the video where I draw using these art materials and leave a comment. That's it, you're in the running. I hope you had a blast. I had a blast. These took deceptively long to make, but as art supplies on their own, I think they are a beautiful artwork and were very successfully pulled off. I'm quite proud of myself for this one. So let me know what you think in the comments, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. But thank you so much for watching and being a part of the Arty Party. And until next time, I'll see you later.